I'm Pablo. I'm a craft person in Codurance. Welcome, everyone. We are going to be having this session on technical coaching, which is part of a series of sessions that we have been having. In case you want to check them out, we have them in our channel, as Valeria was saying. And yeah, we are here with Jose, which is going to be in charge of doing this session, which is the manager director of Codurance Spain and has a lot of experience as a technical coach too. And nothing else. We are also going to have another session in this series the 16th of February, if I'm not mistaken. And any doubts you have during the session, if you want to just raise your virtual hand on Zoom, we can just try to answer them on the spot. And if not, you can also put them in the chat, and we are going to be taking them to answer them at the end of the session, wherever you prefer. So yeah, nothing else. If you want to start, Jose.
Thank you very much, Paulo, for that intro, and Valeria, and thanks everyone for being here. So as was already mentioned, this is one session in a series of sessions around technical coaching. The topic for today's session is around culture, because a lot of the times when you come in as a technical coach, and by the way, I'm using the term technical coach in the broadest of the senses, yeah. If you are a technical lead that is coaching other people, I'm counting you there, and so on and so forth, right? So there are many reasons why, if you're working in an engineering team, which is what we're going to be talking about, you might want to use some of this stuff. So what we're going to be talking about is precisely that, right? Like, what is technical coaching, and how can we affect that culture, when you're either working with a team or working as part of a team. I hope you like it. Again, if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them right there. There's no I'm going to be asking if someone has questions throughout the thing, but just shoot them up, and we can, if I'm going to answer that later, I will just tell you, and then you have to wait, but otherwise happy to answer in the moment. Yeah. And again, we can, I guess, just jump right into it. So I normally like to do these sessions quite interactive. Yeah. So what do you think is organizational culture? Let's start there. Like, what's your idea of what a good, let's say, engineering team culture is? Or what's that? And again, it's interactive, so I'm waiting for answers.
So, hi, Jose.
Hey, Marco. Yeah, I can hear you. Cool.
So I imagine a good technical culture environment as so I imagine there are some areas, but one of them could be collaboration between developers and communication. So having a good flow of communication.
So collaboration, communication, that will be a good engineering culture, a part of a good engineering culture for you. Okay. Yeah. Anything else, or anyone else that wants to add something?
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. I think it's about values and principles.
It's about values and principles. Okay.
Values and principles. Let's be sharing top down or bottom up through all members on team.
Okay. Something else. So values and principles, good communication, collaboration. Those are kind of different, right? Like before Marco was talking about certain behaviors. No, you're talking about values, which is behind those behaviors. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone else wants to add something?
Yes, I heard an expression to talk about organizational culture that goes like this: is people like us do things like this. Usually, that's the way to refer to culture.
People like us do things like this.
Yes, it's the
Okay.
sense that within an organization there's a set of beliefs about how to do things.
Okay, beliefs, no, as well, no, about how to
Yeah.
do things. Okay, so all of those things are kind of in the line of what it is. The problem that I often find when talking to these about people, talking to people about this, no, and working with teams, is that a lot of the time people throw culture around, but they can't agree really on what it is that they're talking about, right? And some people think it's the values that we use, no. Some people it's the behaviors, it's what you do when nobody's looking, no, and things like this. But organizational culture is something that has been studied for quite some time. I'm going to be talking today about one specific definition, although there are many, but I find it very helpful, right? So when we're talking about culture, I'm going to use the Edgar Chain definition for organizational culture. When we're talking about organizational culture, we're talking about the learned behaviors or the shared beliefs, no, that trigger those behaviors when you have a group of people that are stable over a long period of time, right? So basically you have a group of people that are together, no, for long enough time, no, it's a stable group. It's not like people are moving out all the time, no, but they stay together. And as this group needs to deal with the external factors of the group and the internal factors of the group, saying, I don't know, people don't get along with each other or things like this, right? They start learning what works and what doesn't work. They start creating this shared understanding, no, of how the group is supposed to function. Yeah, and sometimes that is conscious, and other times it's not conscious, right? And we will talk a little bit more about that. But just to give you an example, it's like if you're a tribe, no, and suddenly there's a tiger that's going around eating people, you react to that. No, maybe your reaction is let's all go hide in a cave until the tiger goes away, and no. Or it could be, oh, we're gonna go out and hunt the tiger, right? Whatever it is that you choose, yeah, you will learn from that. Maybe you go out to hunt the tiger and the tiger eats everyone, right? That's a no. Or you go out, hunt the tiger, and the village is safe again. So whatever works gets learned by the group, right? And from that point on, every time that you have another tiger, you have another threat, maybe that will be your reaction to that situation, no? And the same internally, no, if someone sleeps with the daughter of the tribe chief, no, and he gets killed, then that's you know that you don't sleep with the tribe chief daughter, no, or something like that, right? So that's what I mean by dealing with internal and external factors. Now, when we're talking about this, it's important to also understand, and this is something that Edgar Chain as well studied a lot, is that when you're talking about culture, tell me if you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, when we're talking about culture, we're not only talking about one thing. Culture has levels in it. Yeah, and a lot of the times he always refers to it almost like an iceberg kind of thing, right? Like you can see what is floating, above the surface, but not the stuff that's underneath. No, and at the top of this, you normally see the artifacts of the culture, what he calls the artifacts or behaviors of the culture. No, so this is things like post-its on the wall, whether people wear suit and tie, and this kind of stuff. No, which is what normally people associate or gives you an idea of what's underneath, right? But the reality is that you can wear a suit and tie and be very agile. No, you can put lots of post-its on the wall and not be agile at all, right? And things like this. So that first level is very visible, but is not enough to understand what is really happening under the surface. Then the next level for this would be what he calls the spouse values, so to speak. No, this is the the things that you put on the wall, no, like, oh, we are innovative, no, we are creative, or we are very agile, or we're very, someone was talking about values before, and a lot of the times these are things that people talk about. They may not necessarily be guiding those behaviors that we saw before, but they're qualified, no, as part of what people aim to do. Yeah, and underneath all of that is the unchallenged assumptions. This is the learning aspect that we talked about, and it's important because it's something that again may not be conscious, right? Like if we are in a situation, let's say, where people don't like to speak against what their boss is saying, no, or what the technical lead is saying, depending on what context you're in. That's not written anywhere. Like when you go into a company, normally you don't get a manual that says, oh, by the way, if the technical lead says something, you're not supposed to say anything against that. No, that's not anywhere. But it is something that people have learned, and they interiorize by dealing with that context. Yeah. Does that make sense to you? Do you have any questions around this? What is culture? What are the different levels, or how it manifests itself? Can you give me some examples of each of these levels, yeah, that you've seen in your daily life, maybe working in a team or in a company?
Yes, I have an example. Sometimes, well, I've seen in some places the assumption that you should not question the designs made by more senior developers or more senior engineers. So you can see that the behavior that comes from that underlying assumption is that there are no meetings to discuss. There are no chalkboard meetings. Everything comes as a given. I don't know if that would be an example of that, but I've seen it happen.
Well, it's a representation of some beliefs, no, that maybe you've seen in the past. Any other examples? Come on, we've all worked in companies before. They don't have to be bad examples. They could also be good examples, no? Okay. Let's see then, we know more or less what culture is about. We can at least have a frame of reference, no, the same frame of reference for it. Yeah. And but now the question is, how does it get created? Like, how does it get created in your opinion? Like, how did we get to, you don't talk against someone else's design, or you don't touch someone else's code, or you pull requests need to you need to do X or Y, or you should always find something in your pull request, that kind of stuff, for instance. How do we get there? What's your best idea of that?
So Jose, I guess that the first two levels, that what we see and what they say are like actual written in the somewhere, like you must come to the office with some dress code, or in this case you have to do this. And the third level is like we see how others act and we mimic them, we copy them. I suppose.
More or less, yeah. So you're right in the sense that the first two levels, there might be codified somewhere. Yeah, like you may have them written down somewhere, or someone explained them to you when you joined, or something like that. And the third one is something that, again, it's a process that happens all the time. Yeah, but not necessarily written anywhere. And so this is actually a very good point, because this is what makes culture very difficult to change, because what people are thinking, that shared understanding of how they should behave and what drives them and this kind of stuff is not talked about. Yeah. So if it's not talked about, then it's really hard to change it. People may not even know that they're doing what they're doing. Yeah. And this takes me precisely to how does organizational culture or team culture or gets created, which is by two processes. No, one is identifying with leaders. Yeah. And here I'm using leaders as, in the broader sense of anyone who leads. It doesn't need to be someone with responsibility in the organization or with some sort of power or decision-making power. Yeah. And socialization. Yeah. Like when you join, it gets taught to you. Someone comes in and mentors you kind of, and this is, you need to understand how we work here. No, this is if you really want to do well for yourself, that kind of thing. So let's look at least one of those, because as a technical coach, a lot of the times you are leading to some extent. There are many, whether that authority is given to you by the system or the structure in the organization, or it's given by your team members. No, hey, Pablo knows about this stuff, so let's listen to what Pablo has to say, or what he's gonna. So we constantly find ourselves in this kind of situation. Yeah, but the way that works is, let's say that I made a mistake. Yeah, I put something in production that cost us money. Yeah, and it went through all the thing. I forced and I disabled test and I put stuff into production. Yeah, and then we lose money. And then Pablo comes. He's the technical lead or the market or whatever. No, he's my boss to some extent, and he comes and starts screaming at me right in front of all of you in the office. Jose, how can you be so stupid? Like blah blah blah, this and that, and by the way, you're fired. No, and kicks my ass and fires me in the spot. Is Pablo shaping the organizational culture in my team? Yes? No? Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
How? What shape is Pablo giving to that culture, in your opinion?
That mistakes are not allowed.
Okay, so we don't make mistakes here. Yeah, if you make a mistake, heads will roll. Yeah, what other message do you think, or what other assumption people can make from this or can learn from this?
That accountability is not shared between the team.
That accountability is not shared. Okay, so let's say that we're always going to find someone that's guilty, right? And that's the person that's going to know. Mm-hmm. Okay, what else?
That rank gives you the right to mistreat a colleague.
That because I'm more senior or whatever, then I can I can scream at you, I can call you whatever. No, all of these things. Do you think Pablo's intention was to create that?
No, I don't think so.
No. So this is the thing. So whether we like it or not, that culture and that learning process is happening all the time, right? So people are always learning how they should be, like what that culture is, and they're taking the cues from each other, in particular from leaders, and situations of in critical incidents, or critical situations, right? Like when those things happen, people look at leaders and they say, how did this person react? Yeah, did it work or not? Or like, can I learn from that behavior? So that is one of the main ways that happens. Yeah, and is that clear? Now, what happens when you start with a new team? Like, what happens if we don't have that kind of history together? Where do you think culture comes from in that case?
Sooner or later, maybe a leader pops up and starts impregnating his or her colleagues.
I also think as they socialized, they together as a group eventually like create some sort of culture among them.
Mm-hmm. So when let's take the example, I don't know, a startup, no, or a new company that gets created. There's nothing there. I just hired people, no, whatever, and but we haven't had that opportunity to create that common history, right? In this case, most of the time, culture comes from the value of the founders or the people that are kind of, so whatever it is that those founders think is important, they tend to give priority to, and people tend to, you know, get those priorities on board as well, right? So if the thing is getting stuff done as soon as possible, it doesn't matter, quality doesn't matter, etc., all of those things are being also taught to the rest of the team. Yeah. So that's more or less, do you understand more or less what the dynamic is? Do you start seeing how, you know, some of these things can come to be, you know, like people don't, okay, let's take that example that we were talking about. No, someone, you cannot criticize someone else's architecture or a technical lead's architecture or something like that. Why do you think, you know, how did we get there, let's say? Let's put it this way. If I want people not to criticize the architecture of the technical leads, what do I need to do as a leader?
Chastise people who do, maybe.
Sorry, there was two people talking at the same time there.
Marco, you go first.
So I guess don't criticize yourself first. Like, so if you want to promote some kind of culture, you have to be the first one doing it right.
Mm-hmm. So that's leading by example. Yes, that could help a bit, no? Especially if you say, oh, no, like someone like, no, I'm not gonna criticize, and you make everyone see that. But also when people criticize you, yeah, you can say, no, you can then go and crush them, no, to some extent. What do you know, whatever, like all of these things, no, that so again, it's the critical situation, the aspect that also matters. It's leading by example, but on the when something big happens, right? And this is, you know, you see this all the time. You see this in projects. People will take the hint from, you know, technical leads. If you're constantly saying, I don't know, this project is crap, no, like, or this client is terrible, or whatever, or this code is shit, whatever it is that they are saying, like, people will see that and they will say, hey, that's the way that we do things here. No, this is what it is okay to talk badly about, you know, someone else's code. It is okay to complain about this project. It is okay, no, all of these things, right? And again, a lot of the times we don't even know that we're doing this, right? We're just venting. Yeah, but you know, your venting is different than someone that just joined the project's venting. You know what I mean? If you're the technical lead and if you're the technical coach or whatever. Is that clear? Now, on the language aspect of things, there's another. I wanna give you some tools today to kind of start thinking about this in a more, let's put it like a strategic, point of view. Yeah, one of the tools is the 5 tribal stages of language in the culture. This is from a book called what was it called? Tribal Leadership. Yeah, by Dave Logan, and it's like 3 authors, right? And what they did is they looked at a bunch of different places where they had identified different types of culture, and they looked at the language and what kind of linguistic patterns, yeah, they would find in those places and how they would correlate to each other. And they came up with this 5 different levels now of culture, and how that the language is expressed on each level, right? And you can see there in the by the way, I'm still sharing my screen, yeah, because it happened to me that I was talking for a very long time in one of the sessions and I didn't have a screen share. So you can start seeing that, level 1 is, life sucks. This is the kind of language that you find, I don't know, in prisons, and the people who kind of lost the drive or their optimism, so to speak, knowing that things could change and that kind of stuff. And relationships are quite alienated. You're an individual. It's, you need to fend for yourself, that kind of thing. It's quite a hostile environment a lot of the times. Yeah. Then you have my life sucks. Yeah, which is my life sucks, but everyone else's is great. Like, oh, look at, kind of, there's that kind of envy, like, oh, everyone's got it better, but me, there's a lot of complaining, victimism, that kind of stuff. It's like, no, I can't do this, etc., right? Then you have, I am great and you are not. Have you heard this kind of language before? Yeah? No?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of times, people who are really good technically, whatever, and this is for every profession, because all the stuff that we're talking about here applies beyond just technology. Yeah. But, people who are really good at their profession tend to be stuck at this level, right? Like they're like, I'm great, and everyone else, and they're always competing, right? Or they're always, they have to be right. All of these kinds of things come from, from that level or that, let's put it like this, maturity of thought, of what is happening in your environment. Yeah. Then you have, we are great and they are not. This is more on the team aspect. Like when you have a team that is really good, that works really well, etc., they start thinking about themselves as a whole, and then the outside. And the comparison is there, but they don't compare against each other. They compare against, other groups. Yeah. And then you have the last level, which is life is great, right? Now, the interesting thing here is, sorry, I didn't see the reference there, but the interesting thing here is that one is, it's very easy to get a level 2 culture. Yeah. The only thing you need to do is start complaining and ask someone else to, like, oh, my life sucks because I need to be here giving this talk to you guys. Now, out of the people that are here, like, who thinks that their life sucks more than mine? My life sucks because I have to be here listening to you give this talk, and so on and so on. It's very easy. As soon as you start complaining, it's very easy to go into that level. Yeah. So that's doesn't take a lot of effort to get there. It takes a lot of effort to build up. Yeah. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this is that people don't jump levels, right? Like if you're level 2, you won't get to level 5 in one go. Okay. You normally have to go through the different stages. So if you're at level 2, you first need to go through, I'm great and you're not, and then from I'm great, you're not, and make that progress, right? The other thing is that you're not stuck at one level. Like even before I said a lot of people are stuck at this level, that's what they where they are most of the time. But a lot of times they fluctuate, right? Like sometimes they're at one level, sometimes they're at another, but they usually move up and down there, right? And overall, there are a few things that you can do to change this. It's important to understand how this kind of thing gets created, because sometimes you get to a team where you have a level 2 culture, it has been created, it's really difficult to move from there. So how do you move from a level 2 culture to a level 3 and so on, right? Because you want the team to be, high performing, you want want to do these things. So if you don't understand where you are when you got there, right, it's going to be really difficult to move it to where you want to go. If you don't understand how the process works or how you got there, it's going to be difficult to be. And if you're not able to identify the patterns that are kind of creating that situation and be able to break them is as well difficult. Yeah. Questions here. I very much suggest that you look into the Tribal Leadership book or any of the Dave Logan, I think it's Dave Logan interviews. I think he's from Harvard as well. So there's a lot of interesting stuff on this. And in the book, he gives exercises that you could use, or hints on how you can help people move from one level to the next as well. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I would like to know how do you express to your team the importance of these stages? Because maybe you're in a team that you're not a tech lead, but you're pretty interested in improving the relationships in the team, but the team maybe is not interested in this kind of things. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well.
Yeah. So there is, I think we did a session on launching the team, like basically you can coach a team that doesn't want to be coached. Yeah. Technically or otherwise. You can't help people that don't want to be helped, right? So there's a lot of effort that before you start talking to them about this is important or not, you need to get the buy-in from their side that they want to change the situation. This is the first thing, right? And that happens, there's conversations to be had there. You need to clarify what the relationship is with the coach, like all of those things. So before you start, doing exercises, I mean, you can do the exercises, but they will only work if people are aligned on what they're there to do, and why they should be working on that and so on. Otherwise, you're just going to get pushback, you're going to get skeptics, etc., etc. That's not going to help you very much. Does that answer your question, Barbara?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so there's work that needs to be done before you even start having these kind of conversations with the team in order to get that buy-in. Yeah. Are there any other questions? No?
Yeah, Jose, one thing. I guess this is related. I think I guess this also is the same as if you're in a situation where the let's say the position you have in a team for doing some technical coaching comes from the company and not the team itself. Like to win the trust of the team, and so that they see you as a figure of change and not as a figure of the company's I don't know, of the company
what the company is
of what the company wants to achieve. I don't know how to explain it correctly.
Again, that has to do, I will be talking a bit more about the transformational aspect of all of this, but it's the way that I see it, there's having authority is one of the ways in which you have some leadership. Like having power already gives you the ability to influence others. Yeah. Whether that is enough or that will get you where you want to go, whether you're doing that through fear or no, or people are willingly following you or whatever, that's a different story, but it will have an impact, right? Now, for me, it's a bit about the setup, as I mentioned before. Like you need to, if you're going to be helping people and they think that you're there to screw them, that's not going to work, right? Like you need to first build that relationship and clarify expectations and do a lot of this stuff. We talked about an exercise, I think, called the DPA, or Design Partnership Alliance, which is when you're starting that technical coaching process, one of the first things that you do is you help define this kind of agreement on how you want the relationship to be, not only within the team, but with the coach, no? To help you precisely in this kind of stuff, right? Like if something is not working out, how do we expect people to react? Like what are the tools that we're giving basically each other permission to speak and to deal with things according to those values and to that way of working. Yeah. So for me, that would be part of that. There's no trust. It's very difficult to do that. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? No. All right. So check it out. So another thing that that's quite interesting in order to understand where you are regarding the culture. And by the way, all of these things, like you don't necessarily need to show this to the team or anything like that. These are tools that will help you think about where the team is. No, you might want to have a conversation with the team. Depending on how you arrive to these conclusions, there are surveys, especially for some of these tools that I'm going to show. There are surveys and things like this that you do the survey and then people answer and then you have a conversation around it. And it's more important, the conversation that people are having is more important than the actual result of the survey. Yeah, because you're getting them to talk about this stuff that is unchallenged assumptions. Now, there's these things that they believe that may not be necessarily discussed at all. Yeah. So the other tool that I want to show you is the competing values framework. Yeah, this is also, there's another book called Transforming Organizational Culture Through the Competing Values Framework, and the Competing Values Leadership book, all by the same authors. And basically, this is a framework that allows you to understand culture, and you can apply this at different levels in the organization according to 4 criteria. Okay? One is how externally focused or internally focused the culture is. Yeah? So are you looking outwards of the organization or the group, or are you looking inwards? And then how flexible it is, right? So if you're very flexible, you're more geared towards the control aspect of things, right? Where you need things to be a specific way, standardized and so on. Yeah, and you can clearly see that it starts showing up like 4 main quadrants here. Like one is, internally focused, flexible. This is more, people oriented, like, well-being, flexibility, work schedule, like all of this stuff. Like it's very important for people to be happy in this kind of thing. Then you have, an outside kind of flexible quadrant. No, this is where, I don't know, you could find designers really thinking about this stuff. Like what does the customer want, etc. But we have a creative process. We can't follow a strict procedure. No, we need to change things around. We need to try things and explore, right? Like that's kind of like the vibe there. Yeah, you have externally focused and control based, which is where you have, I don't know, some marketing teams or sales departments, right? Like where they're like, oh, getting clients, or this is the process, this is the conversion, this is the, this kind of stuff. And then process focus culture is more on the, we need stability. This is what you find, I don't know, in a factory, right? Like you want things to happen specific way, you need certain quality and certain control points and all of these things, right? So top of your head, what does it look like? These 4 quadrants, have you identified this in the past? Have you seen this in other organizations or teams that you work with? Nope.
Not expressed like this, but yes, I can see the division taking place.
There's certain behaviors. Like what I'm
Yes.
referring to is like more. I explained the 4 quadrants. It's not like people are only living in one quadrant. No, but overall the kind of behaviors associated with that. Have you seen them in the past? I would say yes, probably. No.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the thing. So you can start. There's actually a questionnaire that you can do, in order to kind of understand or assess where your culture is, right? So this would be a good exercise to do, for instance, with a team. Like, what is it that how do we see each other? Like, do you see flexible or not, or whatever, right? The other thing is that you can have this at different levels in the organization. So you may have a department that is more geared towards, outside, like, you're talking about a design department, or if you're talking about a marketing department or a sales department, the overarching kind of beliefs or values, may be more geared towards a particular quadrant. Yeah. But if you look at a different department, it might be different. So this is the other thing. Like, there are many cultures happening inside your organization, the same way that if you have a big team, there may be different ways of looking at things, right? So, and that's another aspect. The last aspect around this that I think is quite interesting as a tool is the quadrants that are next to each other. It's easier a lot of the times to get people that are in those quadrants to talk and collaborate than the quadrants that are against each other, right? So someone is very clan or internally focused, people, flexibility, is very hard usually to get them to focus externally on and control, and process. And the same with external flexibility and so these forces, or these competing values, are part of where you see a lot of conflict coming in, into teams. Yeah. So let's say if the most important thing is to cheat early and often, yeah, where would you put that practice, let's say, or where would you put that kind of behavior in this framework? Cheaping early and often, or cheaping, putting things into the hands of the customer. Which quadrant would you put it in?
Hierarchy. I would put it in hierarchy.
Hierarchy, like here, control and
control, internal control.
Right, so control, okay, but is it internally focused or is it externally focused?
Well, I'm thinking about it in terms of the quality gates that you would put in place. That's within the team, but now you're making me doubt because you want to deliver value.
No, I asked, exactly. So release early and often, yeah, okay. There's control, and by the way, you're thinking in the practice that you're looking at is the quality gates. I was talking more about releasing often, right? It doesn't matter if I have quality gates or not. No, if I have quality gates, usually, no, it will be more on the control side. I need things to be a specific way, no. But if I do it often, it's very externally focused. Yeah, it's because I want the customers to have the values. I'm focusing on the market, no, not so much on the people or the team. Yeah. What about flexible work hours? Where will you put that?
In the clan?
More on the clan side.
Internal flexibility,
internal focus, yeah. Right, and there are going to be conflicts, right, with this kind of depending on the things that are in these different quadrants are going to be conflicts. So understanding, where the practices that you're trying to put in fit within this, and understanding where the team is regarding, this kind of thought process, or even the organization. No, it doesn't necessarily have the team. The team doesn't work in isolation, right? It's inside the organization. Understanding all of that will help you as well, no? Because once you understand where you are, then you can start designing where you want to be, right? Like, where do we need to be? We need to be externally focused, or do we need to be internally focused? And this shape, no, of the spider diagram, let's say, it can change over time, right? The idea is that you understand what is it that is more effective for what your team needs to do, yeah, and then start shaping that. Yeah. So once you understand where you want to be, then you have another thing, which is course, certain behaviors are more associated with some of those quadrants. So what you want to do is you want to focus then on giving people the behaviors and the skills that you would need them to have in order to do those behaviors that are in that quadrant. Yeah. So if you, I don't know, let's say that you have a problem with the relationships in your team. Yeah, it's not they're all very good technically, but they're constantly at each other's throats, and there's no way that they can collaborate very well. Yeah, they're constantly bickering with each other. What do you need to do then? Well, maybe you will need to give people some skills around conflict management, which quadrant that is in. Okay, I'll give you the cheat sheet. Okay. This is more on this side. Yeah. Understanding yourself and others. Yeah, developing people, building teams, participative decision making. Before you were saying no, the people don't criticize someone's architecture or whatever. Well, maybe that person putting forward the architecture needs some skills on how to do it differently, because they're trying to do the best they can, no, but the best they can, maybe I'll set it and I'll tell them what to do and that's it, right? So you need to start working on those behaviors and skills that are required for people to display the behaviors that you want them to display. Yeah. Do you want them to do TDD? What do I need in order to get that? Do I need them to write tests or to have quality gates or to, this will help you, no, in that process. Okay. Questions? Yeah, we talked about the competing values framework, how you can use these to assess and to build the culture now, or kind of create a picture of the culture that you want, how some behaviors are more associated with one quadrant or another, and what kind of skills are associated to those quadrants in themselves, so that you can then train people, work with them, mentor them, etc., or give them the tools that they need in order to be able to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how would we approach getting to that first assessment or of where are we standing with regards to these 4 competing values, just to figure out what we need to do more of or what we need to do less of?
All right, so well, I will start with a conversation with the team. Normally what I would do is, okay, are we doing the best we can? Are we the best team that we can be? If everyone says yes, then maybe there's nothing to do there. If that's not the case, would you like to be? Yeah. All right, so where are we today? Why don't we try this out? And you explain, competing bias, or kind of understand where we are or how we see ourselves working. And then you do the exercise, the exercise or the survey, collect the results, show the results to the team. Okay, so this is what came out of the survey. What do you think? Like, what does it tell you? Given this, where would we need to be? Why do you think it is that we are not expressing these behaviors? What are the options that we have in place right now? Maybe we can get training, maybe we can modify the way that we work, maybe like all these, and then you can start acting on those things, right? At some point I talked about the coaching, 10-year coaching cycle, where you get an objective, and then based on that, what are the options, way forward, and so on, right? Like the whole grow model. I talked about this. I talked about ADKAR as well. Where was that? Yeah, ADKAR, which is another model that helps with that behavior change kind of thing, or understanding how to go about this. Yeah. So, but that's the idea, right? Like you start with, where are we today? What do we need? Because in the end, it's what is that we need to do the best job possible that we can, to be our best at what we do. That's kind of the thing. You know? The language that you use also kind of shapes things, right? So if you're blaming people, if you're talking only about you, like all of these things, people will tend to talk about themselves, you know, like you kind of create that environment yourself as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
So another way to help with understanding where you want to be is to help them codify that. Yeah. Is it you know how these companies like, you know, Netflix or Valve or any of they have this employee employee book, no, or employee guidelines, or, you know, a culture book, or this kind of stuff. That has a reason for it, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to make explicit the behaviors and values that you want people to show, yeah, and that's the first thing that you show them when they join the company. Yeah. So this is another way of doing that. Like, okay, so should we create our own team culture book, so to speak? I used to I work with one team, well, a few done this afterwards, but they would create kind of like a Google SlideShare kind of presentation, explaining the team, explaining what it was important for them to collaborate, explaining, you know, who the people are, maybe a little bit about themselves, that kind of stuff. And when someone new would join the team, they would go through that presentation, and, you know, they would explain, they would update it with the person that came in, they would discuss the values and what they meant, like all of that stuff as part of what they were looking for people to do. Yeah. And maybe someone says, oh, you know, Claudia is very important for you guys, but I've never written a test in my life, you know, and I really don't think that I need to write tests because I'm perfect. Yeah. And then people will be like, okay, maybe we need to have a conversation on why is this happening and so on, right? So that's, again, don't subestimate, no? Underestimate, yeah, exactly. Underestimate the value of this stuff. Yeah, what kind of behaviors do I want to see, etc., etc. Yeah, and then what values is that related to, and so on. So again, you can talk about the values, like the middle layer. You can talk about the behaviors, and maybe you can bring or make explicit some of the unchallenged assumptions so that they can be discussed as well, and that takes time, right? That's how you go about doing that. Yeah. So I know, how are we doing on time? I think we have half an hour more, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. So the important thing is, it is a transformation. It is a journey, no, that you have to, and you need to manage it as such, right? So when you are doing this, it's super important, yeah, to work on sense of urgency. So people need to understand why they want to do this, you know, it's important to do this change and so on. And sometimes you need to give them data. Yeah. Listen, I work with a team where the first thing that I did when we got there was went to the customer support team and said, bring up all the reviews in the Android and iOS store, yeah, that talk about this component in the application. Yeah. In particular, the chat in that case. Yeah. What are they saying? And they brought up all this, anything that mentions chat, slow, etc., etc. And I went there, this is what our users are saying about your component. You know, like, because this is not the application. They're explicitly saying this is crap, the messages came out of order, you know, like all this stuff. So this is your responsibility. This is what people are saying. Would you like to change that? No? So that's kind of that idea of creating sense of urgency. You know, another thing that I work with, it was about what's it called in English? I'm sorry, my brain at this time doesn't work anymore. Guardias, no, like on call duty and all this stuff, right? Like, you're constantly being called at 3 a.m. because the servers are down. Would you like that not to happen? Yeah. Okay, then let's work on that not happening, right? So all these things are kind of you first need to increase that sense of urgency. People need to buy in and so on, and understand what's important. Then you also need a guiding coalition, right? Like, who are the people who are going to support this, especially if you're working as a technical coach across different teams. You want to have, you can't be everywhere, right? So you need people who buy into this, who understand the message, et cetera, that can support you and act as change agents, no, in this process. So finding who they are, putting them together, like really giving, turning that into a team is very important if you want to. And that team needs to have everything that is needed for the change to happen. Yeah, what I mean is you need people with authority that can make changes. You need people with the respect of others. No, you need people with the technical knowledge. You need people who are good communicators. Yeah, you need people. By the way, that this all doesn't have to be one person. Yeah, it's like it's like you need the combination of those things. Yeah, so that together they can move the change forward. If one of those things is missing, and by the way, there are more characteristics that you need, no, but if one of those things is missing, let's say you don't have the authority to remove certain blockers, or even if you don't have the authority, you don't have anyone who can enable that, you have a problem. At some point, you're gonna reach a wall, and you're not gonna be able to move forward from there, right? If people don't know how to communicate, you're not gonna get buy-in, right? So sometimes what I think of is, who are the people here that and by the way, there's a couple of exercises that I'll give you that you can try with your teams right now. But one of them is, you try to find who are the people that need to be in this coalition. I would ask them the question: if we were to throw a party here, yeah, and invite, who are the people that you would trust to organize that party, yeah, or to make sure that people come to that party? Like, who are the influencers, so to speak, in this organization, right? Who are the people that everyone respects, right? And again, that's kind of the thinking that I want you to do, right? And even if those people are not already buying into this thing, you should try to work out their support for this to happen. Yeah. Then you also need a clear vision, right? Like, a lot of the times, we need to do TDD, or we need to do, I don't know, have this qualification, or go to Kubernetes, or do you have a technology? No, but you don't have a clear vision of what it is that you're doing. So it's very easy to lose track. Yeah. If we're putting Kubernetes in place, or we're going to trunk-based development, or like, why is it that we're doing that? What's the inspiration behind it? Why should I get on board with this? No, we're doing TDD. Why should I get on board with it? Well, the case of this team that I was mentioning before is, well, for one, we don't want to be called at 3 a.m. No. We also don't want customers to be, complaining about our application or about this particular component. No. And we think that this could be a way that would help us. No, we're going to trunk-based development. Because we want to be able to release every day, every minute, if we wanted to. That's the ideal. Whenever you need the product, I can get you the product to on the customer's hand. No, and that why of things and how you sell that to people in the organization, both from the team and so on, is quite important. Because you need to communicate that. A lot of the problem is that people under-communicate why they're doing things, and it takes a lot of, when you're tired of repeating something, then people are starting to listen to what you were saying. Yeah, that's a good model. Yeah. Generating quick wins. Another thing is, we're gonna do TD, and then in 3 years, when we have the whole product covered, then we will be able to refactor it without no problems. No, that's not gonna fly. right? And I talked about this in the last session as well, on the ROI, or getting the return on investment on what you're doing, right? Like smaller steps that you can see the impact and so on. This is very important. Yeah, we're gonna be doing TDD. Before you go into TDD, maybe why don't we start with some tests? Yeah. Hey, we now have tests. No, why don't we go and see, you know, which components are the ones that are giving us more problems? What's the coverage on those? Oh, we don't have any. Well, maybe we should aim for, I don't know, 80 to 100% coverage on those components. No? What about now, you know, making them easier to test? What about, you know, like you kind of build on top of the success of the previous stuff, because there is value already in what you're doing. But if people don't see that, and they have to make a big jump on, you know, in 1 year, when we completely finish covering the product, then we'll be able to, that's not gonna fly, right? The same with refactoring, the same with any other improvement that you want people to be able to see and connect that as soon as possible. And that takes planning as well. And the last thing is around removing impediments or removing barriers, right? A lot of the times I see, oh, we're going to do this, but this is the way that the tool tells us to do it. Well, guess what? The tool probably can be configured. So why don't we configure the tool in a different way instead of, no? Why don't we change tool? Why don't we, you know, there's lots of things that, or bloggers that people find that are getting in the way of the adoption of what you're trying to do, that that they simply don't have never thought about changing, or they don't have the authority, or they don't have the support. This is why also the coalition is important, right? Like, because when you find out, it's like, oh wait, what do we need to do? We need to talk to this guy in headquarters to reconfigure the panel on Jira to have XYZ. Oh, don't worry. So that's an email or a chat message or whatever coming from, you know, director of engineering, and that's it. It's done. You know what I mean? Like those things are also part of the, yeah. Now, the last thing that I want to, by the way, any questions on this, on how to approach then changing those behaviors and that culture and what people are expecting? I'm trying to give as many examples as possible on some of the things, but if it's not clear enough, let me know.
I would ask, what do you mean by vision? Like a particular piece of the culture? For example, when you say, you're saying TDD, when we cover the entire project in a year's time, we will be able to refactor it. That won't fly. So we should go to a smaller goal. But the vision, which vision?
The vision is we're gonna, the vision could be, you know, we're gonna migrate to the cloud, or, you know, we're going to make the platform scalable, or we're gonna have 0 bugs, or we're gonna, you know, or we can deploy every day if we want, you know, whatever that vision is. Yeah, it's usually something that you can also explain to business, because it needs to be bought in by business, right? But that's what I mean by a vision of where things are going. Why are we doing what we're doing? Yeah, there's a couple of things that you can do there. In fact, there's a guy called Jim Collins. He has a workshop. He wrote a book called From Good to Great. I think it's called, quite a good book as well. He has a workshop precisely on, you know, defining a vision or working a vision out, and he talks about 4 main aspects in a good vision, right? You have the purpose, the why we're doing this, you know, make the world a better place, whatever, right? It's something inspiring that you probably won't be able to get to ever, right? But it's something that people can get behind and inspires them and so on. You have the values, so how you expect the behaviors to be aligned to those values. And he talks about something called core values, which are values that you will not sacrifice, even if it goes against you, right? This is important. So which values are just nice to talk about, which are things that we're not okay with sacrificing, yeah, when we need to find some, right? The imaginary, or the image of what that looks like when we have 0 bugs, what does that look like? Yeah, and you need to, and this is also that you can talk to people and explain to them what you're trying to do, and, you know, and they can buy in and make it themselves. No, And then there's the challenge, or the big hack, big hairy audacious goal. So what is the goal? Yeah, like this is the thing, like in 2 years, we would have, migrated every single application to the cloud. Most of them will be already split out or whatever, taking advantage of the components, right? Or whatever challenge it is. Yeah, and then you plan towards that goal, and then in a couple of years you change that goal into something else, and you continue moving forward. No, your objectives towards that purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So the last part here is, how do you teach values to someone? Because it's not, a value. What is a value? No. Not like adding stuff up. It's not like, the idea is that you need to know what those values that you want to teach are. Yeah, if it's quality, if it's transparency, if it's collaboration, communication. At the beginning Marco mentioned some of those things. What is it? Like, let's make it explicit. What do they mean? When we're talking about this stuff, like what kind of behaviors do we associate to this? Yeah. You lead by example. Yeah, you demonstrate them. You explain and teach people with examples how those values are represented in what you're doing. Yeah. Now, I communicated. I sent an email. That may not be when I say communication, maybe I would expect first, before you send that email saying that you did what you did. Yeah. So maybe just arrange a 5-minute call, to let me know that this is happening. So, or ask me if I want to be involved or whatever. No, that could be, that's what I was expecting when we say communicate. No, it's not communicate after the fact. No. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing. Empathy is another important one. One thing that we did is at another company, we sat people that were doing the operations work or the maintenance of the platform together with the people who were delivering the features. Yeah. When I say operations, I mean the support, the ongoing kind of thing. And in some cases, we move people from one team to the other. Right. So someone would go and do maintenance work, and someone would go do feature work. And then when they would come by, it's like, oh shit, we're creating a lot of problems. Like, how can you do this? Yeah, exactly. How can I do this? But this is not just my problem. No, that kind of understanding is quite important as well. You can find examples in other places. Like, you could either bring people from outside. For instance, communities are a good way to find people to bring in to talk to your team and explain, what they're doing in their company, or how they approach certain things and this kind of stuff, right? Inside the company or outside, communities of practice, people from other teams, etc., etc. Speakers as well, and that kind of stuff, although it has a bit less impact. Yeah. And encourage diverse perspectives or conversations around, okay, so this is the way that we do it. Why don't we have a conversation with this other team that is doing it differently? No? And see, why are they doing it differently? What are the good things that they see? What do they see any problems in doing it this way? Maybe it fits for our context, but not for theirs, this kind of stuff. So creating those spaces where people can talk about things. And again, celebrating the good behaviors, or the behaviors that you want to anchor into the team's culture, right? You want to see more of that, then celebrate it, make it into story, give visibility to people that are doing what you, and not like, oh, Pere is the best because Pere did. No, but there are other ways in which you can exalt, or raise someone up, in front of the group for something that they did, and not necessarily say thank you. That's good. Yeah, or, hey, good job. Be specific. We're going to be talking more about feedback on the next session, but that's part of it. Okay, so this is it. This is all I wanted to share with you today. There are a couple of books that I would recommend. check out Organizational Culture and Leadership by Edgar Chain. This is from the first part. Check out the Competing Values Leadership, Competing Values framework in general. There's like 2 or 3 books. There's the survey for the OKI culture assessment. It is paid, but there are some questions that you can have. This one, it's this one here. And if it's not this one, you can use something else, right? It's on don't get too hung up on the tool. It's about the idea, right? I use those, but you can use something else. And the book, the Dave Logan book, and Ali Fisher and John King, again, it's an interesting read. There's a couple of videos as well that you can check out and are quite interesting. They go a lot more in detail on how to change it, how they go about trying to change through language the culture. Yeah, I hope that it was helpful, and I don't know if you have any other questions before we finish. It's the end, by the way.
All good. Very good.